Welcome, everyone, to Techdaily.ai. Now, this deep dive is sponsored by StoneFly. They're your trusted solution provider and advisor for things like enterprise storage, backup disaster recovery, hyperconverged setups, VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox clusters, AI servers, even the SA365 turnkey security appliance, plus public and private cloud. You should definitely check out stonefly.com for more info. All right, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into something from Opera. It sounds pretty ambitious, actually.
Yeah, they've announced this new browser concept. The claim is, well, it'll fundamentally change how you interact with the internet.
Powered by AI, of course. That's the key part.
Right. The core idea, it seems, is moving beyond just, looking at static web pages.
Yeah.
Opera's talking about a browser. They're calling it Opera Neon for now that, uses the internet for you.
Turns your browser into an AI agent. That's the phrase they're using.
Exactly. An agent. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really dig into what Opera is actually saying this thing can do, what's supposed to make it different, and maybe more importantly, what do we actually know versus what's still kind of fuzzy right now.
Definitely. Okay, so let's start right there with that core concept, an agentic browser. What are we really talking about here?
Think of it like this. The browser has some kind of contextual awareness. It understands what you're trying to achieve, maybe, and then based on that, it can perform tasks for you, complex ones, not just, loading a page or filling a form automatically.
So less of a window onto the web, more like an active helper in the web.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, an active participant.
And the really big promise, the one grabbing headlines, is that this browser can supposedly research, build, and design things using cloud AI agents.
The examples they give are pretty wild. They're talking games, reports, code snippets, even entire websites.
Which, yeah, that's a massive leap from just browsing, isn't it?
It really is. And what makes that even more intriguing, maybe slightly raises an eyebrow, is this claim that it can work on multiple tasks even when you've gone offline.
Right, I saw that. The specific example of writing code while you sleep. I mean, wow.
That really pushes this idea of background autonomous work. It suggests a capability browsers just don't have today.
But hang on, how technically feasible is that? Handling complex creative stuff offline with AI? That sounds really hard.
Well, yeah. It either implies some incredibly powerful local AI, which seems unlikely for that scale, or maybe offline means something slightly different once the task is kicked off. Like, it manages the cloud agents even if your machine is off.
Possibly. And that's where the details get really important,
Yeah.
right? And currently, they're thin.
Very thin. The announcement mentions an AI engine that understands your requests, and then it uses these cloud-based AI agents to do the actual heavy lifting, the creating.
Just like an interpreter layer. User intent gets translated, sent off to the cloud bots.
That seems to be the idea. They also talk about integrating an AI agent they already have called Browser Operator.
Ah, yes, I remember that. That one seemed more focused on automated routine stuff, like web tasks.
Exactly. Shopping, filling in forms online, booking travel, that sort of thing.
Okay, that makes sense. More transactional.
And what's interesting there is the note that this part, the browser operator, interacts with web content locally, right there in the browser.
Oh, that's a key distinction.
Yeah, for things like forms or shopping carts, handling that sensitive data locally instead of firing it off to the cloud, that's a big plus for privacy and security.
So it suggests a split approach. Heavy creative stuff in the cloud, personal routine stuff stays local.
It looks like it, which, makes technical sense.
And when you place this in the bigger picture with things like Microsoft's Copilot or maybe OpenAI's Operator, how does Neon fit?
Well, the announcement does position some of Neon's tools alongside those. It mentions a chatbot interface for search, Q&A, getting context from the current page.
Okay, so familiar ground for anyone who's used AI in a browser recently.
Right. It feels like they're building on those existing ideas, that chatbot interaction model, but then trying to bolt on this much more ambitious agentic capability.
Which brings us to the catch, or maybe the catches. What don't we know?
A lot, basically. The source material is pretty open about the lack of detail right now. We know it's planned as a premium subscription product.
So not free. You'll have to pay for these advanced features.
Apparently. But that's about all we know on the business side. There's very little concrete info to back up those big claims about building games or coding offline. We don't know how well it's supposed to work.
Or even if it will work as advertised. And launch date. Pricing.
Nope. Zero info on when it might roll out or how much that premium subscription might cost. You can sign up for a wait list, but that's it.
Standard pre-launch hype then.
Pretty much. And it's worth remembering, this is the first time Opera's used the Neon name.
Oh, I vaguely recall something.
Yeah, back in 2017, they launched a different experimental browser called Opera Neon. It had a very different interface, kind of futuristic looking.
And what happened to that one?
It never really took off. It was interesting, but didn't catch on. So while Opera's clearly willing to experiment, their past moonshots haven't always landed.
Good point. And this also makes it, what, the fifth browser they currently offer? They have the main one, Opera GX for gamers, Opera Crypto.
I think that's right, yeah. It's adding another one to their portfolio.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this for you listening. What's the potential takeaway here?
Well, on the one hand, you have this really compelling vision. Imagine a browser that's not just a passive tool, but an active assistant.
A browser that genuinely does work for you in the background? If they could pull off even some of these claims, building complex projects, working on tasks while you do other things?
It could fundamentally change how you use the internet, especially for work or creative stuff.
Hmm.
Less clicking, less copying and pasting, maybe
Hmm.
more just directing.
It promises a significant reduction in manual effort, potentially.
Absolutely. Oh, and it's a big but.
The ambition level is incredibly high.
Extremely high. And the technical details are scarce, the timeline is non-existent, the price is unknown, and we have the history of the previous Neon.
So it's firmly in the watch this space category, right? Exciting idea, but don't plan your workflow around it just yet.
Precisely. The gap between saying it builds websites and delivering a tool that actually does that reliably is enormous.
All right, so we've taken a deep dive into Opera's big announcement about this new AI agentic browser concept, Opera Neon.
It's definitely a fascinating vision, a browser that works for you, automates tasks, even creates things supposedly while you sleep.
But as we've discussed, that vision is running way ahead of the concrete details right now. The technical challenges alone are huge.
It really does make you think, though. If a browser could genuinely act as this powerful AI agent, if it could really take on complex tasks for you, what's the first thing you'd actually ask it to do? What big project or annoying task would you hand over first?
That's a great thought to leave people with. And before we wrap up, just a reminder about that offer from our sponsor, StoneFly, the 100 TB immutable and air-gapped SSO NAS for just $8,995. You can find out more about that at stonefly.com.